Hello and welcome to another episode of the Well Played Podcast. I'm your host, Warren Curtis. Today is September 19th, 2023, so it's a little bit of an odd day for us to be doing a show. And normally we do it on Fridays. It's a Tuesday today, but we do have some exciting things to talk about. Obviously, I think the biggest part of why I decided to go live today is there was a massive leak at Xbox on behalf of Xbox, I guess. Done today. It was done by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, or at least a court acting on their behalf, had uploaded some documents. And what had happened is they had uploaded a bunch of documents that were supposed to be redacted, and they weren't redacted. So we've got access to a lot of kind of inside baseball here. Anyways, so we're going to be talking a lot about that today. And then I'll do another episode later on in the week where we talk about kind of more of the other news. I will touch on some of the other stuff as there is some relevance there, but we'll kind of talk about that in a bit. Before we get into all that, let's talk about what it is that we do here on the show. We're here to talk about gaming from a mature adult perspective. What that means is we're not going to get into console wars. We don't wave a fanboy flag, and we don't get into petty arguments about gaming. What we will do is talk facts about games and the gaming industry in simple language and give our opinions on why these things matter. We will talk about gaming as an adult and as parents, and we will also talk about the games we've been playing. You can find more from us on YouTube. The link is in the description. And on Twitter by following Amarren Studios. That is AMARREN STUDIOS. We are also available as an audio show on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you want to catch your pods. Be sure to like us, rate us, ring that bell, because all of that helps everyone else find the show. And we want those comments. We want your feedback, so let's hear it. Alrighty, so back at it again with our show. We do, as I say, we do have quite a bit to talk about, so let me just bounce over to that. Leaks are awesome. They're a double-edged sword. So they let us know maybe what's coming, or what is planned in the industry. They also let us know more about kind of what decisions were made or why those decisions were made. And that's more kind of what I like to see. We know games are coming. They're not going to stop making games. We know there's another Halo. We know Mr. Chief isn't going to disappear all of a sudden. So, and I did say Mr. Chief purposely. We know these things are going to happen, right? Mario's going to continue being Mario, and that's the business. But I do like to see why some decisions are made. Now, this leak focuses on kind of two aspects of it that are more interesting to me than others. The first aspect is the hardware, right? And we'll get into that and a little bit about why that matters so much. What's happening with hardware and kind of what the plans are, because it's interesting to see what Microsoft's approach is to hardware and maybe see how that might differentiate or might change going forward. Because we know these were the plans when these documents were made. So what we need to do is put that into context for what happens down the road, right? Plans change, business models change, pandemics happen, container ships get stuck in canals, and the whole world gets turned upside down because of inflation and a war in Ukraine, and things like that happen. And because of all these things, some of them are more important than others, obviously, but because of all these things, business plans change, right? And kind of further to that point, I said the war in Ukraine. How has that affected video game development? Well, Stalker 2 was supposed to be out already. And that game is largely developed by a studio that is based out of Ukraine. CD Projekt Red, makers of The Witcher games and Cyberpunk 2077, they're based out of Poland, but they still have the effects of game development, or the effects of the war on game development, right? So there's so many things that can change business plans and things like that, and we can't take one thing for granted when it comes to that. One tiny little fly in the ointment can have a huge snowball effect and change things around dramatically. One container ship gets stuck in a canal, and all of a sudden the whole world's shipping system is in chaos. It takes months to unravel, right? So that's kind of where things are happening with that. But let's get into what these leaks are about and the meat and potatoes of it. I think the most kind of interesting part of this is a mid-gen console refresh. Now, this is Project Elwood. It was a code name that was bounced around for a while now, but it didn't really have anything tied to it. Now, I was under the impression this black Series S that we just got that has a 1 terabyte in it is Project Elwood, or was anyways. But this is showing that it might not be. Now, again, these plans are accelerated. Elwood, and all these documents, I believe, are about 2 years old. So looking at that, we're talking 2021, somewhere in there. They probably didn't have the full scope of what the pandemic would affect things. They didn't have the full scope on the chip shortage resolving itself or not, and things like that. But essentially, what we're seeing here, and I don't know if my mouse over is going to work on this or not for you guys, but essentially what we're seeing here is if we look in here under the updated technologies, right? This is kind of the more important part of this. We're seeing new Wi-Fi standards, new Bluetooth standards. It has a new Bluetooth radio in it. So we're getting updated technology. Does that mean that it's got more value? Well, yeah, but it's also more affordable technology because everybody's already building these radios, these Bluetooth radios, or these Wi-Fi radios, or whatever it is. They're cheaper to procure, right? Because it comes to a point where it's actually more expensive to procure the older stuff, right? The less effective or lower quality stuff. A good example of this happening recently is the Switch OLED, right? I always look up there for it. It's not there right now. The Switch versus the Switch OLED. The whole reason why we got that is because the way Nintendo does business is they go, we need 50 million of these little tiny screens so we can make 50 million Switches. And the provider goes, okay, here's 50 million. And then in that contract will be like provisions to get 20 million, 30 million, whatever more of them, right? And periodic installments or whatever. But once that production run's done, that company's, they got to go out of their way to make more of them, right? So now also Nintendo's sitting there going, well, we made 140 million Switches. What do we got to do next? Well, they were probably planning the Switch 2 or a Switch Pro. And because the chip shortage screwed everything up, they didn't have that. But they did have a bunch of the screens already for the OLED, right? And these would be the screens that they would be going, oh, let's slam that into the Pro and charge an extra $100 and we'll make money. And instead, we just got the Switch OLED, right? And they charged more money for it. And meanwhile, I bet you that screen cost them less money than the original screen did to buy, right? Based off of volume. So whatever, it's a money-making thing. And that's what this is, right? This Project Elwood is a efficiency-based refresh, right? It's not a refresh because you and I need it as a consumer, or, maybe there's people out there that just haven't bought an Xbox yet that this would appeal to more, because nobody's sitting there going, well, I really want an Xbox, but it doesn't have Wi-Fi 6E, or it doesn't have 5.2 Bluetooth, or whatever it is. It's not made out of 100% recyclable packaging, right? Nobody's sitting there going, that's holding me back, right? But what it is doing for them is it's allowing them to lower their costs, maybe make more of a profit, if any profit. The Series S is probably pretty skinny on the profit, if at all, right? At launch anyway, so probably was pretty skinny. It's probably better off now. But anyways, that's the idea of it. And they're slamming in a terabyte of storage. Again, that is that black Series S that they announced that is coming out like very, very soon. I know some people have review versions of that already. Is this, but in black with the 1 terabyte, which is the same thing. As we see here, it says the same low price of $299, which is the price. $299 American is $349 Canadian for a Series S. And that rings true. And what's going to happen with this, and we'll talk about how they're going to handle this in a minute. But what's going to happen is this is going to fill that gap. You're not going to be able to get the other one again, right? They'll have like a one-time clear out of it, and that'll take care of it, right? On to the next thing, Project Elwood, Series S, Project Brooklyn, Series X. This one's structurally different and physically different in a multitude of ways. I hate how they call it Gen 9 console gaming. Console generations are stupid. But anyways, whatever. it has the new radio, the new everything in it. It's round, which is neat-ish, I guess. It kind of looks weird. And it doesn't have a disk drive. It's all digital, which is interesting that they've kind of went that way. But now it's the same great value at $499 with a 2 terabyte hard drive. So they're taking away the disk drive, giving you a 2 terabyte hard drive that doesn't cost them the same amount as a disk drive to make. And, or I shouldn't even say hard drive. I believe that's still a 2 terabyte SSD with the USB ports and all that stuff. There's one line on here that I've been purposely ignoring, the all new, more immersive controller. We'll talk about that on the next slide. The big thing here, and this is part, I've talked a bit about this, I think, on when we were talking about the PS5 Pro, is over here. Again, I don't know if mouse over will work for this, but under updated technologies, that last line there, 6 Newton meter die shrink for improved efficiency. Yeah, a 6 Newton meter chip is more efficient than a 7. It consumes less power. That's because it's smaller. But more accurately, they can produce versus a 6 Newton or nanometer. I call it Newton meter. God, I'm an idiot. 6 nanometer chip on a wafer. They can fit a lot more chips on a wafer than they can with a 7. Right. So they're lowering their production costs again, and that's what this is about. This is about, okay, now we got a 6 nanometer chip. We were able to shrink the size of that system, that chip that's needed, right, to a 6. So now we can make more of them on this wafer that we make, this huge ass wafer of chips, and then we cut them out and slap them into consoles. So for every wafer, they could probably make an extra 50 Xboxes or whatever it is, and then they're much more efficient, right, in production for that. Reduce power supply unit power by 15%. New low power standby mode is 20% of the current Xbox Series S standby mode. That's interesting because that is the exact same wording that it uses there. And that's the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. So I don't know if they are actually saying that it's going to use less power than the Series X or the Series S rather. I don't think that to be true. I think it would be the current Xbox Series X and they just copy pasted it. And then increased use of PCR in housing. Again, that's cheaper plastic. And then 100% recyclable packaging. It's cheaper to get. They're cutting costs, well, all in the name of affordability. And it's not wrong that they're doing that. Like, that's a good thing. But that's why it's happening. They're not going out of their way to be environmentally conscious here. They're going out of their way to save money. It's just the byproduct of that is environmentally conscious. So anyways, those are the two kind of platforms that are coming. And we'll talk about when in a minute. But then this is the all new, what do they call it? The all new, more immersive controller. And this is interesting because this is actually a keystone. And a lot of people aren't seeing it. And it's ironic I'm using the term keystone because there is Project Keystone that I'll talk about again. I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again here because we have official documents with it. But we have the Play Anywhere capability here. So it's the new Xbox wireless standard, which, for those that don't know, the current Xbox controllers communicate on a 2.4 or 5 gigahertz bandwidth, similar to how like a cordless phone in your house would work. However, it's I don't want to say proprietary. It's just not commonly used technology. Whereas, the PlayStation uses Bluetooth, right? Bluetooth, and Nintendo now uses Bluetooth. They never added the chip into the Switch. It always had the Switch or the chip in the Switch. They just never turned it on until like last year or 2 years ago, which is insane. But anyways, having a Bluetooth capability as well as the Xbox communication capability means you can connect the controller to your Xbox or your PC or your cloud gaming device, whatever it is. And it says right here, direct to cloud. Seamless pair and switch. So obviously this sounds like it needs to have an app with it because it has a new mobile app with features that you can see the paired devices. So you can connect this thing to, I'm imagining a world where you can connect it to your Samsung smart TV that has Xbox Game Cloud on it or X Cloud on it and play your games there and then switch over to your Xbox or your PC or your Rogue Ally or whatever it is. and play with that. The interesting part of this is now we have haptics. So precision haptic feedback as opposed to the old vibration motors, which haptics are good. They're more precise. VCA haptics doubles speakers. I wouldn't mind seeing the presentation on what they're doing here, but I think they mean sound coming from the controller with haptic feedback. So I think that is similar to how the PlayStation, the PS5 controller works on that. An accelerometer, which again, we've had motion controls on the PlayStation side since the DualSense 3, right? Or DualShock 3, which they called the 6-axis at that time. And then, sorry, I thought I heard something. And then quieter buttons than thumbsticks, which that I would agree with. I was playing a fighting game the other day late at night, and boy, that echoed in the house. Doing all my button mashing. And then sustainability. So this is the whole sustainability thing. Rechargeable and swappable batteries. Sounds like the partnership with Duracell might be at an end. Recycled materials and less resin. Repair and disassembly. So it sounds like this controller you'll be able to take apart and put together, kind of like the Elites, but with readily available parts. So maybe we can fix controller drift finally. Modular thumbsticks. Again, that kind of goes in with what I just said about how we're going to be able to hot swap these parts out and handle controller drift. Improve longevity, so they're better quality sensors on there. Not Hall effect, I would imagine. I highly doubt Hall effect, but here we are. And continued build improvements. So they just made it more efficient, probably less prone to cracking and things like that. I know if you hit kind of right below the share button, if something drops there, it can crack really easily there. I've seen quite a few controllers crack that way. So what happens. Lift to wake. So that's an interesting feature. You can lift it up and it automatically connects. I'm assuming not to the Xbox unless they do an update on the Xbox side to enable power from the controller. Like obviously you can hold the Xbox button on, but to enable that to work for lift to waking. But then that'd also be, I would hope it'd be shut offable, because I wouldn't want to like be cleaning, wiping down a counter or something, move the controller, all of a sudden everything's on, and then have to go shut everything off again. That doesn't seem very efficient. And then familiar Xbox feel. We have the same ergonomics as Merlin, which is the previous controller. Same ergonomics as Merlin. Merlin isn't the previous controller, I don't think. I think I know what Merlin is. We'll talk about that in a minute. Again, that just came out in this leak. Same layout and activation forces, so same buttons. SE, LE, and XDL options as expected. Special edition, limited edition, and Xbox Design Lab options as expected. So again, an interesting aspect of that. And these are coming as pack-ins on these two consoles. So I believe this controller will launch separately, but we'll talk about this more in a minute. We do have this is what they call the mid-gen device lineup, delivering on players' needs slide. I think I called it how the consoles are going to focus. So Project Elwood, which is the Series S, has the exact same specifications on here. I think other than the addition of these new, the changes are in green here. So we have the 1 terabyte option on Elwood. We have the Xbox Wireless 2, the Bluetooth 5.2, and the Wi-Fi 6E, right? And then it comes with the Sibyl controller, which is the one I just showed, and a new USB-C to A cable. It's enhanced. Not sure what that means. And then ID refresh light. Again, this does seem like a light refresh. It's more so just like, let's slap a new hard drive in it. And what was weird is the Elwood didn't specify anywhere on that slide about a new chip, right? And I find it hard to believe they're not moving over to a 6 or a 5 nanometer. They could probably do that on a 5, to be honest. Yeah, they could probably do that on a 5 nanometer. But like, as I say, it's targeting 1440p. It is the older generation AMD hardware. It should be able to fit on a 5. Whatever. Anyways, and then we got the Brooklyn, which is the big Series X. Okay, And then its changes are basically the same thing. 2 terabyte hard drive now. It's now all digital, which is the change. Has the same things, although they've added a USB-C port to it, which is the new European Union standard. I am assuming they just did that at a compliance or expected to be required a compliance on it. And then it does come with a USB-C to C cable on it, probably for charging the new Sibyl controller. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because on the Series S, they don't have a USB-C port. They have USB-C to A cable for charging the Sibyl controller. That's exactly what it is. And then it's all new. It's round. It's the same chipset. Again, it's manufactured on a different nanometer process, but it's the same design, essentially. Then the one that didn't get shown because it doesn't matter is Project Uther, which is the Xbox Series X in Xbox Design Lab, which I think is pretty baller. So it has all the same features except for its Xbox Design Lab. So I'm assuming we're going to be able to color this thing up like we can in the Xbox Design Lab controllers, customize things, maybe get our name engraved in it or something cool like that. And that's been a long time coming, and I wish they had something like that at launch, to be honest, because I would have special ordered one that was blue or something, because that's my color. But find another way to waste money on consoles, right? And it comes shipped with the Sibyl. Now, the Xbox Universal Controller is codenamed Sibyl. It comes with Bonnie in box. I'm not sure what Bonnie is, right? We don't know what these code words are. I am under the impression that Bonnie is probably the formatting for the thumbsticks, the hot swappable thumbsticks and things like that. That's probably what they're calling that, right? It's the only thing that I think would make sense being swappable or being an accessory within the package. Pardon me for doing that. And then Xbox Universal Controller and Xbox Design Lab, which is essentially Sibyl. It's called iGrain, and it's just a Xbox Design Lab version of the same controller. So again, we'll be able to format our colors and design choices with that. It looks like it comes with the grips on it, which is cool though. So when does this all happen? Well, you can see kind of right here. I'll give you a sec to look over all that. So it looks like Xbox Gaming Beat at the beginning of June, fiscal year 2024. That is E3, but it's not E3 because E3 doesn't exist. So that's what they're calling it. And that's when they're going to do all their announcements right there in that Xbox Gaming Beat. So they are going to launch the Sibyl controller right before leading into that. So at that event, they can talk about more than likely the Elwood and the Brooklyn coming later on in the year. Yeah, that's exactly what it says right there. Sorry, I didn't read this slide actually beforehand. I just knew that I wanted to talk about it. And then they're going to launch at the end of August, beginning of September. So back to school for your Series S launch, and then holiday for your Series X launch. Now, what's interesting about this is how they do acknowledge that they're going to be separating it all out, right? They do talk about that. And they do say it gives Elwood its own moment earlier in the holiday timeframe to maximize sales, because they need to steamroll that up. People will be like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to get a Brooklyn, so I'm going to go get an Elwood and just make sure I secure the deal. Starkville End of Life, just ahead of Brooklyn launch. Now, Starkville is the code name for this current Series X, right? So it'll be its end of life. I'm assuming, I don't think they're going to do a Black Friday thing on that, depending on how much inventory they have. But I imagine these things are going to be kind of built to ship for now, so they don't wind up sitting there. And if they have to do something to get rid of a couple pallets of them, that's a lot different than having to get rid of a warehouse full of the things. The Series S, on the other hand, they're going to be liquidating at $199 on Black Friday. So if you want a current version of the Series S, the 512, for $100 off, that's a pretty good deal. And we've seen it for $100 off at places. Target did a $199 deal last Black Friday, actually, so in the States. So I think there will be something like that happen again this year anyways. We can get one of those last minute deals on it. And that's kind of where they all fit in. So that's your mid-gen refresh. So that puts the generation that started pandemic 2020, mid-gen 2024, 2025. It says fiscal year 25. That's end of 2024. So it's a year from now. We'll be talking about these things arriving on shelves, right? That puts the new console. Oops. That puts the new console platform on the next generation 10, if you want to go by Microsoft's bullshit, is going to be 2027, 2028, somewhere in there. And that kind of fits right into this chart, which is that each generation of Xbox has also brought new innovations to Microsoft. So we saw, they're kind of showing how their engagement has worked here as well. Their interest level, the low to full, they're kind of all in on gaming right now, which is very true. They are very all in on gaming at Microsoft because all departments benefit from it, right? And we're going to see that kind of evolve as we go. And we started seeing the kind of the beginning of it as their Azure tech and their cloud tech has been utilized for things like Microsoft Flight Simulator and this new Hideo Kojima game. We're seeing cloud tech, which is utilized as a business, like that's more so for business tech, but it's streaming in 2 terabytes of data into your Xbox so you can play Flight Sim and with photorealistic graphics. That's pretty cool, right? So we're kind of seeing how that works and how Microsoft's other business ventures merge into the gaming sphere, right? Xbox Live was kind of the birthplace of that, and Xbox Live wasn't the first spot where you could play games online, but it was definitely, I think, the most critical spot where you could play games online as a console player. And it kind of unified the other platforms as well. It made the need for things like Steam and that to exist in a different way than what they were currently offering. And it only took Nintendo like 20 years to catch up and decide to do Nintendo Switch Online. So that's impressive. Anyways, we've got, Xbox Live DirectX. We cannot hold back how amazing DirectX is. That is why the Xbox is called the Xbox, is because it was utilizing DirectX graphics, right? And it's the DirectX box. Kind of neat to know that. And I learned that from Seamus Blackley, actually talking about that on a podcast like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago, I would say, actually. And then the Xbox 360 came out in 2005. They pushed the Kinect quite a bit on that. Kinect was an interesting technology for gaming, but where it actually applies is to a lot of places that we don't expect it to. It's utilized in supermarkets and grocery stores for tracking systems for theft. It's utilized at amusement parks to project individuals' movements into screen during waiting queues. They do it at Disney. They do it at Universal. The digital media store, right? The ability to buy games on Xbox Live and then as a result on the PlayStation Network and things like that. I don't think that's their innovation, but like they kind of made it more commonplace to do. And then they increased their game input, which I think is really important there. Like we saw things like Gears of War and more Halo and Forza and stuff arrive as a result of that generation. Really come into their stride more so as a result of that generation. And then you've got to think of things like Fallout 3 and Oblivion and stuff like that. Very important. And then the Xbox One, it was the Xbox One, but we got the new DirectX, right? So a really good evolving of that. It introduced Xbox Game Pass, which I think is a game changer and the best value in gaming. I'm not getting paid a cent to say that. I promise that. But it's what I believe. I think it's the best value there is. For $20 a month, taxes in, you can play like 200 games. All you want. It's cheaper than Blockbuster. So works for me. The Xbox security processor, I'm not sure where they're going with that. Because the Xbox One processor wise, it was a closer gap in between the Xbox One and the PS4 than it was with PS3 and 360. But the gap, even though the PS3 gap was favored for the PlayStation was technically a marvel the PS3 was compared to the 360, which was just an Intel machine. Well, it was an AMD, but still, it was just a computer, a little crappy little Pentium. Um, the Xbox One and the PS4 tighten that gap on the technological level, and the processor. Yeah, there's some kind of unique aspects to how that worked, but I still don't think it was something that I would put on a slide presentation. But hey, you do you, boo. The Xbox Series X and S, which came in 2020, we saw direct storage, big thing, big round of efficiency and how processors handle data and what they do with it, banking things up for RAM access and things like that is, yeah, not their innovation. It was AMD, but hey, cool. And Project X Cloud, definitely, I think there is some future here in X Cloud. I don't think the future of cloud gaming is me sitting here on my iPhone as much as that Apple presentation last week would have you believe. I am not going to be sitting around and playing friggin' Gears of War on this. Like, not when I have a 40-inch monitor in front of me or a 65-inch TV in my other room. I'm going to be sitting here playing playing it on my little 9-inch iPhone. If not even, like, what is that? That's like 5.5-inch, 6-inch. This is an iPhone 11 Pro, so I think it's like a 6-inch screen. Either way, pretty small. Not going to be doing that. But xCloud, I think its applications are, and how it worked with or how it works with kind of borrowing the game, right? Where I like it is I go on xCloud and or I go onto my Xbox and I go, hey, here's a game on Game Pass that I want to try. Oh, man, it's 80 gigabytes and I got to clear room up to download that, and I don't know if I want to do that because I just want to try it out. Well, I could just boot it up on cloud, play it, and go, yeah, you know what? It's worth a shake. It's worth clearing up the room and deleting this game or that game to get it on there. Or no, it's not, right? And it's really handy for that. Or what you can do is you can be like, hey, I got this game. It's really cool. I'm going to play it. It's downloading, but I don't want to wait that long to play it. So what I'm going to do while it downloads is I'm going to play it on an xCloud. Then maybe when I'm done playing, it'll finish downloading, and I'll wake up in the morning and it'll be there. Now, it's advantageous for people that see that's the problem with that, and a lot of people said that's a huge advantage to it, including Microsoft in their court case. And I agree, that is an advantage, being able to play a game while it's downloading. But then I have kind of a couple questions about that, and or thoughts. If you can run xCloud while downloading a game, you got some serious bandwidth. If you're not stuttering and dropping frames left, right, and center, or your download just stops, you got some serious bandwidth. If you got some serious bandwidth, what game other than, even then, Call of Duty, like, it takes me under 5 minutes to get to get a Call of Duty game, right? Like Starfield downloaded for me in about 6 minutes, and that's 100 and something gigabytes, right? So, like, how big is this game? How shitty is your internet that you've got to use xCloud? Well, you need good internet to run xCloud. So again, it's catch-22. So I'm not 100% sure I understand where people are doing that. I as I say, I got really good internet. I really like that. I got really good internet for the area. I really like the ability to just hop on and treat it kind of like a Blockbuster or a demo disc or something and be like, yeah, it's worth it. I'll download it now. Or no, not my thing. So again, I do see that being the future of gaming. I see the future lies in there somewhere. I just don't see it being necessarily cloud in the sense of us playing on the phone. I do think being able to play from your Samsung Smart TV or your Wi-Fi enabled fucking fridge, I don't know. I do see the appeal in attaching consumers or customers, which is attaching revenue to devices that you had no hand in building, right? Which is these Samsung TVs and smart devices that everybody already has. They're consumers that just need to be lured over to your side a little bit. So it's a little easier for them to do it that way. And then the next gen, which they're saying in calendar year 2028, which makes sense, right? I think 27 is a little early. I think 28 it will come. Now, it does feel like they're accelerating things right now, so we'll see, right? I feel Elwood has really released as this black version of the Series S, and I think that's only been a push to kind of get ahead of whatever PS5 Slim thing that might be happening this holiday, which I don't think it is going to happen this holiday, but everybody says it's still happening. Cloud hybrid and games, or cloud hybrid games, an immersive game and app platform. What does that mean? Well, it means they're looking at the Xbox being the all-in-one device again. Now, the Xbox One was supposed to be the all-in-one device. It's supposed to be our set-top box and our gaming device and our Blu-ray player. And maybe some people treat it like that, but I didn't. Most people didn't. And then but that's what they're looking at. They're saying, hey, you know what? If you want, you can use this for productivity too. And I think that's where they're going to go for that. And it fits into kind of everything Microsoft wants. And then they can put 365 on it. And all of a sudden, hey, you're playing games. And if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can integrate your 365 account to it. And all of a sudden, boom, there's that email you've been waiting for. It shows up. So you can just spend your game, bounce over, slap out a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, answer an email, and bounce back over. And you'll be able to do that because they're going to have keyboard and mouse integration. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Like we already do have keyboard and mouse integration, but it's going to be like kind of plastered out there for us. And that's kind of the future of it. Right? Well, keep on hitting the wrong hotkey for this. So this is Xbox gaming today. As we see, we got the browser, which is, you can kind of game anywhere through the cloud on the browser. You got mobile, Android, and iOS, which I will admit I do have xCloud on my phone. Smart TVs, low end and mid PCs, which again, low end and mid range PCs, we do have that. You have that ability with the Xbox Game Store, and cloud gaming is all supporting that. Third-party streaming sticks and set-top boxes, which, again, I see a world where maybe not a Roku that we have now, but you can buy a Roku that is capable of communicating with this Project Sibyl controller, and it has the Xbox game app on it, and you can just play games on your Roku. I do see a world where that happens, and I see that happening probably in the next calendar year. The cloud device, which is Project Keystone, is actually just the chipset from the Series S, slapped into a little box with a HDMI dongle and a USB dongle on it, and you plug it in to your power source, and you plug it into your HDMI, and you pair up your controller, and you can play games on it. It's fully funded. It's a fully funded project. It exists in the wild. I've seen these in the wild, and by that I mean they're in the hands of people that I know in the industry. I have seen them on live streams as well. Phil Spencer had one on on his shelf one time, and it was the talk of the town for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, nothing. And I don't know if they just reached a point where, hey, we want to sell this thing for $100 with the controller, and with the controller, it needs to be $130 for us to make any money off of it. I see them running into this problem where the chip shortage just kind of screwed them over out of doing it. And maybe they're just going to sit on it until they can get things in order. Don't know. And then, of course, we have the consoles, which we have. And then the high-end PCs, which we've got. And then the Cloud Blade, which is, again, incorporating that streaming in technology. So the technology, the Azure technology that they utilize for Flight Sim and the Hideo Kojima game going to utilize, that makes it possible to have these huge games with terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of assets getting streamed in to your computer through amazing technology or your gaming device, right? And then we have kind of on the accessory side, they have audio and then core and elite controllers. which again we have. We have really crappy Xbox headsets. Um, no, this is a Turtle Beach. It's a crappy Turtle Beach, so that's why I thought it was that. But it's a Turtle Beach, and then they're probably going to evolve that a little bit, and then Core and Elite, which we're familiar with because that's what we have today. This is what we're going to have soon. So again, we have the same kind of hardware up here, except for you'll notice in between cloud device and controllers, there's this new handheld thing. Now, I know I I can't say I know that they were developing handheld. I heard extremely good rumors that they were developing handheld. Uh, but I do not know is if anything happened as a result of that. I think handheld and the cloud device, Project Keystone, were kind of maybe tied together a little bit. And when one didn't become viable, the other one didn't. But since then, we had the Rogue Ally come out, which is apparently an amazing device for handheld gaming. I I have my opinions on that. I don't think it is as good as everybody's saying it is. And we'll see if it's just maybe the luster wears off and see what happens there. So let's talk about that again, maybe closer to Christmas. Um, but either way, handheld was part of their strategy, and it's probably going to continue to be part of their strategy. I see them looking at things like the Steam Deck and going, how can we leverage Valve Steam Deck to our advantage? Well, one way you can leverage Valve Steam Deck to your advantage is by creating a fork of your Xbox Store or Xbox Game Pass that can run in Linux, and then making it available to them, so you don't have to dual boot Windows onto it, and create a runtime environment that works in. Right? It's possible, very possible, and if anybody can crack it quick, it's going to be Microsoft's engineers. So I see that happening more than likely than them making their own handheld, at least now. I think pre-pandemic and pre-chip shortage, anything was on the table at that time, and that's probably why they were being developed hand in hand. I think it's more likely we see a cloud device before we see a handheld, though. And then, kind of on that further, this one hand controller, that's what I think is Project Merlin. This one hand controller. And I think we're looking at one hand controller and the mobile controller as kind of being a buddy of each other. Mobile controller being something that you would slide on like a backbone onto your phone, and the one hand controller being something a little bit more similar to a Joy-Con, right? But you kind of whip it around like a magic wand, point, click, whatever, right? And it's more of a navigation device than a gaming device, right? And that kind of fits into their ability to utilize your console as a productivity space if you so desire. And you go all the way down here to Core Premium, which is Project Sibyl, Elite, and then gaming keyboard and mouse. How's that bolt in there? Well, it bolts into the new Xbox generation and what they're planning on doing there, right? In the Generation 10, the 2028, the Xbox Next, whatever you want to call it. The next generation of consoles, I think, will fully embrace gaming keyboard and mouse. It won't be shoved down our throats, but I think it'll just be like, hey, guess what? You can also do this, because Office, like Microsoft 365, which is what Office is, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all that stuff, it's all cloud now. It doesn't need to be on the system. And if it doesn't need to be on the system, you could run it on a friggin' Texas Instruments calculator or something. Who cares? And if you can do that, then why not have it on your premier gaming device? Because surely there's college kids that would be like, hey, I got $500. I can't buy a good computer, but I can buy a wicked Xbox. And with that Xbox, I can shove my keyboard and mouse in there, and I can also do my homework, do that presentation that I'm doing for my internship, write my resume, do things like that. And that's who they're targeting, is those individuals that are doing that. I don't see many people going, well, I got a new job as the head of marketing for multi-billion-dollar corporation.com, and guess what I'm using is my Xbox Series Y or whatever the heck they come in with that, right? So, it's logical. It's the logical step. It'll also allow games like Age of Empires and stuff like that to actually be played the way it's supposed to be played on a console, which is not on a console, but on a computer. Now we're into the software. Well, not necessarily software, but into the fun part of it. This is an email in between Phil Spencer, who's the head of Xbox Game Studios, and individuals known as Chris Capocella and Takashi Numoto. Takashi Numoto they're both individuals within Microsoft. I think they are in the financing side of things. I'm not 100% sure, but we will see. Maybe that's something I could Google. But this is a random thought, according to the subject. And it starts off with Takashi. I totally agree. This is Phil Spencer writing. I totally agree that Nintendo is the prime asset for us in gaming. And today, gaming is our gaming, as in the division. And today, gaming is our most likely path to consumer relevance. It's true. It's Microsoft's only way to stay cool and stay interesting is to be in gaming. Nobody's sitting there going, you see the new spreadsheet mods that they came out with? No. The new macros. Oh, the new macros. That's awesome. I've had numerous conversations with the LT of Nintendo about tighter collaboration and feel like if any US company would have a chance with Nintendo, we are probably in the best position. I would agree. You have the deepest pockets to make anything interesting. And then he goes on to talk about how there was a member of their board of directors that has left, Microsoft's board of directors, but they now sit on Nintendo's board of directors, and they've been gobbling up stock at Nintendo. And they're going to be looking for return on investment. That's the type of investor they are. They're not going to be sitting there letting Nintendo accumulate cash, which is what Nintendo's doing right now. Nintendo's literally just filling a war chest full of money, right? They go, thank you for buying Mario Kart 8 again, and they stick it in a little box and they put it under their bed. Nintendo's not going to be wanting to do that for long. And again, this email is 3 years old. It can't, I'm assuming that is August 6th, 2020. It could be June 8th, 2020. Either way, summer 2020. So things have changed a little bit. But anyways, he's basically saying if they could make a play on Nintendo, right, he will. And where that goes is he doesn't see really a way to come up with a mutually beneficial or mutually agreeable merger of Nintendo and Microsoft, right, without there being some sort of catalyst to spur money in order to satisfy shareholders, right? And he doesn't agree on doing a hostile action and a hostile takeover, which is accumulating stock and then basically just being like, hey, we own you now, because it's a long game play. And I agree with that too. Hostile takeovers, which is Activision did that to Blizzard, did a hostile takeover of Blizzard. It always sours the relationship, and then you wind up with an exorbitant amount of people just leaving, right? And then when your top talent leave, you don't have the company that you actually had. You have a company that has file cabinets full of things that they did, but you don't have the talent to do that again. And that's where a lot of companies make mistakes. And it's very refreshing to see Microsoft going, hey, we can't do that. Not necessarily saying why in the email, but you can tell he knows why. However, he does go on to say that his board of directors, which is Microsoft's board of directors, has seen the full write-up on Nintendo and Valve. So Valve has been a target as well. And they're fully supportive of on either if the opportunity arises, as am I. So basically that's saying, hey, I got the board of directors permission to go buy Valve or Nintendo if that conversation happens, right? If Gabe Newell's sitting there going, you know what, I really want a shit ton of flower shirts and another submarine, Phil Spencer will make that happen. Now, confidentially, we have two fairly active merger and acquisition discussions in gaming right now. Warner Brothers Interactive and ZeniMax. I took ZeniMax to the board of directors last week, and prior to the board of directors discussion, I asked Amy and Satya if they wanted me to slow either or both of these given the TikTok discussions. Let's expand that for a sec. So Warner Brothers Interactive is the division of Warner Brothers that's actually interesting. They make, they have NetherRealm Studios. They make Mortal Kombat, right? And then they have all the studios that are basically making like the Lord of the Rings games and the Harry Potter game that just came out, things like that, right? But they're all making licensed IP, right? So there's a different discussion needs to happen when acquiring somebody like Warner Brothers, and Phil expands upon that. We'll talk a bit about that in a sec. And then there's ZeniMax, which we know happened because that's Bethesda, right? But what he's talking about is given the TikTok discussions, because there was a big discussion, a big rumor that Microsoft was just going to buy TikTok to make it American owned and not Japanese owned, and then they own the social media thing. That never happened. It would be interesting if it did happen, but it never actually happened. Anyways, and he was curious as to, do you want me to slow down these processes or halt them? Because you guys on the Microsoft side, not on the gaming side, but on the Microsoft side, are looking towards doing this TikTok thing. Do you want me to slow it down so we don't step on each other's toes? And he was told no. He was told no, balls to wall, do it. We're fine to doing all three of them if they make sense. And he says, I won't say Warner Brothers and Zenny is Nintendo, but both are for sale and gettable by us if things align. Biggest obstacle in Warner Brothers is IP ownership. We wouldn't own any of the IP, which hurts long-term flexibility, and the only obstacle is on ZeniMax is the valuation expectations of founders. And what he means there is what I just said. Warner Brothers doesn't own, like Warner Brothers uses their license. None of, like, you're not going to own Superman or RoboCop or any of the cool stuff, Harry Potter, if you buy Warner Brothers Interactive. You're just going to own the talent pool and the tech to make those games, which might be appealing if you have a bunch of IP to utilize and nobody to make the games with it. I'll touch on that in a sec because I have an idea where this still fits. And then the other side of that coin, well, you got to also remember that NetherRealm, which is formerly Midway, they do own IP. They own a lot of IP. And they won't part with Mortal Kombat, right? So it goes with them, right? And that's part of their deal, right? But like, I still think Cruisin' and San Francisco Rush and those games are probably still their IP. I can't see why that would have been separated off to the pinball side when they folded. So again, don't know. Matt Booty would know because Matt Booty was in charge of Midway when they went under. And Matt Booty is now a big wig over at Microsoft. He's in charge of Xbox Game Studios. He's actually in charge of the studio side, not Xbox as a whole like Phil is. So they would know. Where was I here? And ZeniMax's valuation expectations of the founders. That's Robert Altman, the founder of ZeniMax, most famously known as Wonder Woman's husband, is it was his expectation of how much money he can get out of that. Probably to make sure that there was a legacy for his family and things like that. And it's understandable. He owned the company. He had a responsibility to make sure that his company did the things it was supposed to do for his family. And I agree with that. Right. So it was just making sure that he got the money he wanted. He got $7.5 billion. Now, I know that's not entirely his money. $7.5 billion is $3 billion more than what Star Wars sold for at the time. He got his payday. Right. And he was a very successful lawyer. It wasn't like he was poor. Like, he married Linda Carter. He married Wonder Woman. It's not like she, lived in a cardboard box before they met, right? Like, so there's advantage. Not that any of that matters, because this thing is worth so much money, and you need to get what you expect out of that as an owner. I think he knew his health was deteriorating, and he just wanted to make sure there was a legacy for his family to be looked after, as well as the people that brought ZeniMax to where it is today. Makes sense to me, right? You want to make sure, like, your Todd Howards are looked after, right? Anyways, and then he goes on to say, to give a sense of scale, ZeniMax is about the size of our current first-party studios organization. So everything that Microsoft owned at the time, when they bought ZeniMax, when they bought Bethesda, they effectively doubled in size. So downside, it's more core, which it is, right? And Bethesda makes very specific games. Doom makes very specific game, or Doom. id Software makes a very specific game. The kind of the curveballs in there is you have all your sports studios that they also own, but you have like Arcane, right? You have Arcane Lyon and Arcane Austin, and they're always trying something different. Whether it's they're always within the kind of their immersive sim wheelhouse, but they're always doing something a little different. But again, it's niche, right? But like, it's not like one of them's going to be like, I'm going to make a racing game or a baseball game or puzzle game or something, right? But where you do have that potential is all these support studios like Roundhouse and there's one in Nova Scotia that they just bought like a year ago or whatever. And most of those are support studios for Bethesda themselves. So they handle things like Fallout Shelter and Elder Scrolls Blades and things like that. But there's the potential of one of them just going, hey, we got an idea for something kind of neat. And they go, yeah, runner. Cool. Like, and now that's because that's part of Microsoft, and because Microsoft's focus is there's a lot of this on playing anywhere and mobile and things like that, right? Like, as I've said a million times, this Activision Blizzard acquisition is because they want to put games on a cell phone. And they want to have content to deliver into a marketplace on cell phones when it opens up in 12 months, that it's important to them. So I can see them green lighting just about anything to do with mobile out of studios that have proven mobile successes like Bethesda, who has Fallout Shelter, Doomslayer, the Commander Keen thing, and Elder Scrolls Blades. And then the potential to play like ESO on a phone, as much as I would never want to do that, I think is probably up there for some of the addicts. And because it's MTX funded, or largely MTX and subscription funded, just write a check. That's all they're doing, is just writing checks. I love this discussion of value. You looking at the opportunities here. At some point, getting Nintendo would be a career moment, and I honestly believe a good move for both companies. Maybe. I don't think there is a world in which Microsoft owns Nintendo, and the reason why that is not because Nintendo would be like stubborn. Nintendo's going to be stubborn, but I don't think that is actually the roadblock. I think it's because foreign ownership of Japanese companies is extremely difficult to do. And Japan itself wouldn't let one of its most beloved companies become foreignly owned. I just don't think it would happen. But, it's taken a long time for Nintendo to see that their future exists off their own hardware. A long time. Smiley face. Yes. Nintendo's future does exist off their own hardware. The Switch is doing what the Switch needed to do. We'll see if the Switch 2, or its successor, whatever you want to call it, is going to do what it needs to do. I, again, don't see that world happening where Nintendo is a third party. I just don't see it. But I also, it was Sega kind of caught everybody off guard when it happened too. What would need to happen for that to happen is somebody else come into the space and shake it up, whether it be Google or Amazon or one of these other things. Maybe Tommy Tallarico's and television thing that he's scamming people with. Maybe that is actually real and not a total scam. We'll see. But I don't see a world in which Nintendo stops being a first party unless there's a major dynamic that changes in the industry. And that's not going to happen. Nintendo's going to be doing what Nintendo does, and most of that is just counting money and suing people. This is a very fun meat and potatoes thing. So this is from a presentation that was shared during the acquisition steps of ZeniMax. So this is when they were going to buy Bethesda, and basically what they took probably to the board of directors to go, hey, here's what's in the pipeline, here's what potential things are, right? And kind of to go through the rundown on this, in fiscal year 20, they had, in fiscal year 20, I think is entirely, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not a big business exec. What do I know? Just a cross-eyed farmer with a podcast. Anyways, they had Doom Eternal and DLC, The Elder Scrolls Online Greymoor, Fallout Wastelanders, and Deathloop. That happened, right? Fallout Shelter Online, Project Whirlwind. Not 100% sure what Project Whirlwind was. I think that was Blades. Not 100%. I can't quite remember. Fiscal year 21, they were planning on Starfield. We just got that now. Elder Scrolls Online expansion. We've had one of those every year. Redfall, just got that now. Doom Eternal DLC, that actually got shelved and canceled. Ghostwire Tokyo, we got that last last year. Fallout Worlds that came out. Project Hibiki. And then we have on their free to play and mobile Project Ubu and Project Wanderer. One of those is that Commander Keen thing, and I think the other one of those is Doomslayer. Which that all happened. What didn't happen here, so as I say, Ghostwire Tokyo slipped, Redfall slipped, Starfield slipped, and this wasn't planning on the fact that there was going to be a pandemic, really, and what happened there, and look what happened. And Starfield, there was no world in which it was shipping in 21 anyways. I think it would have slipped into 2022 at the end of the day, pandemic or not. But Project Hibiki is a Japanese word meaning harmony or resonance, echo. That is Hi-Fi Rush, and it means resonance or harmony in the sense of music, specifically. And so that was Hi-Fi Rush, and we got that at the beginning of this year. That was a shadow drop at the beginning of this year, so that's very interesting. And as I say, Redfall came this year. Probably shouldn't have. Starfield came this year. That was good. And Ghostwire came in 2022. So everything kind of got pushed by 1 year or two there. Fiscal year 2022, they were expecting the Indiana Jones game. That hasn't happened yet. I am firmly believing that is a 2024 game. We'll see. The Oblivion remaster, which we've been talking about that a bit a long time ago. We'll talk about that again in a sec. Elder Scrolls Online expansion, yep, and then Starfield DLC. Again, couldn't get the DLC because we didn't have the game. That is a 2024 thing. The Oblivion remaster and Indiana Jones, I'm pretty sure is going to be a 2024. So with all that in the thought, I think Oblivion is coming 2024. And then 3 planned titles, free to play mobile. I think there's something Quake related there. Things like that happening on the mobile side or free to play, where they just punch them out and go, here you go. And then fiscal year 2023, the new Doom game, Doom Year Zero. So obviously the studio that makes Doom has been making another Doom, like more than likely, right? Doom Year Zero and DLC. I think that's, again, a 2024 thing. Project Kestrel. We'll talk about that in a sec. Elder Scrolls Online expansion. Pretty good planned. Project Platinum. So these two projects, Project Kestrel and Project Platinum, are not unfamiliar leaks. Project Platinum, the interesting thing about that is, and I think I have it here, Project Platinum was associated as being, didn't want to move that around on you, but here we are. Project Platinum was associated as being Indiana Jones from Machine Games. But Indiana Jones is actually Project Relic. Okay, so let's bounce back over here for a sec. Project Platinum was associated with Machine Games as being Indiana Jones. I think Project Platinum is probably the next Machine Games game after Indiana Jones. Again, judging by this, Platinum has a release date of 2024 and Relic has a release date of 2022. We go over here, 2022, we had Indiana Jones, and 2023, holiday 2023, we had Project Platinum. So they're probably targeting a holiday release. Might slip into 2024, but we'll see. Again, this is fiscal year, and this could have been done by calendar year. So again, could be a lot of changes there. Project Platinum could be the new Wolfenstein. It is whatever Machine Games is working on next. And if it's not Wolfenstein, Quake. I keep on saying Quake a lot. Machine Games got their start modding Quake. Then they were like, you guys make really good mods for Quake. Why don't you just make games for us using that tech? And they were like, cool, yeah, let's do it. So they did. And that's how Machine Games came to be. And they started making Wolfenstein games. And they also help out the other studios, Arcane, primarily because they're in close proximity to Arcane Leon. But they do also help id Software on development, right? So they do all work together. Project Platinum is more than likely another Wolfenstein game. Project Kestrel, on the other hand, was the codename associated with Elder Scrolls Studios, ZeniMax Online Studios. Sorry, Elder Scrolls Online Studio. So kestrel is a bird. It's part of the falcon family, if I'm not mistaken. Um, got me beat what that means, right? Usually there's some meaning to their thing, and who knows, maybe a bird is an important part of their game. But either way, I think that is their new MMO from ZOS, and I think that is going to be a 2024 thing. We know they've been making their own new IP for quite a while. They've been hiring up for it. Makes sense. They also have been making their own engine, right? Like they run their own engine, but they've been releasing or planning a build of that engine, the ZeniMax Online engine, and I think they want to make it commercially viable. Or originally they were going to make it commercially viable. It does show up here as being available April Fool's 2023, I think, or January 4th, 2023, as being what they were trying to do. But we have the Zoe engine, which I think they were going to try to make it commercially available or something with that, or at least licensable. No, be interesting to see. I think both those Kestrel and Platinum will definitely, it'll come after Indiana Jones because that's their priority. So whatever Platinum is will be later. And then Kestrel is obviously the new ZOS game. What I did want to kind of spitball, because I don't know for sure, but like they did the Quake 2 remaster thing, and they did stuff like that this year. And I'm wondering if it's possible that Platinum was that. Don't know. We'll see. I will maybe put that forth with a couple people and see if that bites. We'll see. And then fiscal year 24, they plan for Elder Scrolls 6. That isn't happening until 2026 at the earliest, according to Microsoft's own lawyers. I think there's a real possibility that it ships as a launch game for the new Xbox Series hardware in 2028, 7, whenever that is. And I've kind of talked about that in the past, that window kind of fits a little too nicely to not be like, you know what, take your time with it, spit polish it, make it perfect, and then release it. The alternative is the development on it has gone exceeding expectations. We know they've been working on it for a while. Now that Starfield's out in the wild and you have your QA team doing your debugging and engineers and stuff coming in and helping as they need for that, but they're done creating assets. They're done creating the core portion of Starfield, even done doing the core portion of the DLC, really. They just kind of got to kit it all together now. That most of everyone, once they were done with whatever they were building for Starfield, I'm done doing all my trees. I'm the tree guy, so I'm going to go make trees for Elder Scrolls now. Bye. Right? Like, they don't need to come sit around and twiddle their thumbs going, well, there's no trees to draw, so what do I do now? Right? So those people bounce in and out of different games. It's not like there's a firm stopping point for everybody to go, hey, you're done working on this game, you move to this, right? So it's been a gradual growth into the Elder Scrolls 6 that there's a possibility that things are so far along in that, and it's not a very likely possibility, but it's there-ish, that Fallout 5 could also hit that window. I don't see a world in which the new hardware launches without there being 2, probably 3 big things on it. You want a big Bethesda release. You need a Halo. And you need a Forza. You can't have a launch like the Series X had. You can't have that. That cannot happen again. It only worked because everybody was sitting at home bored because of the pandemic. That's the only reason why it even happened, right? You need to have content, and they know it. And they talk about it in more emails that have leaked, that some of them I have in here, some of them I don't. They need to hit that stride. And if that means holding back Elder Scrolls 6 so it's spit polished, ready to roll for that launch, I think they'll do it. If that means, hey, we got an opportunity to do that and throw a shit ton of money at Fallout 5 to get it at the door, I think they do that. It could be either one, right? Time will tell. I think next year's E3, Xbox showcase, whatever they do in June, when they announced their big where is it? This thing, Xbox Gaming Beat. I remembered it was a dumb name, but I just couldn't remember what the dumb name was. Whatever that is, I think will tell us whatever that showcase is, because there's going to be Bethesda stuff there. We're going to see the new Arcane game. We're going to see the new, right, out of that. The new Arcane game, Dishonored 3, obviously. So we're going into fiscal year 24 here on this chart. Elder Scrolls 6 didn't happen. Expansion for Project Kestrel. That is, again, fits into the Elder Scrolls Online annual thing. So we'll see it. Interesting thing here, licensed IP game. Again, we'll circle back to that. Fallout 3 remasters. This is where I want to talk about the Oblivion remaster and the Fallout 3 remaster. We've heard that this has been in the pipeline for a while. And what my understanding is it's been something that people have been working on over at Bethesda when there is something else that they're not needed to do. Like, okay, everybody's, figuring out lighting in Starfield right now because it's gone haywire. I don't do lighting. I do this. So I'm going to be over here doing sound in Oblivion. Right. And I think it's just been one of those things that people circle back to when they got slow moments. They got 6 hours of this day of just not doing anything. So they're going to go do that. Right. And I think that's how those have been getting developed. Now, with Microsoft owning them, there's a possibility where they just went, hey, you know what? Take your time with it. Do it right. Or they sit there and go, hey, why don't we put a team together, a special team of all the people that we have, because we're massive, of people from Obsidian, of people from In Exile. God, my brain was not working on that one. People from In Exile, people from Oblivion or Obsidian, people from Bethesda that can work on these through the cloud as they go, and just kind of hammer them out and do exactly what I just said. Put them in the bank, wait for the rainy day, and go, hey, it's a rainy day. You know what would make that better? Oblivion remaster. Here you go, right? And just dropping all these things in the Creation 2 engine. I think just even if you just copy paste it, don't do anything, just copy paste it and upres the textures. I think that's an awesome sounding time, right? Especially if you get rid of a lot of the bugs in the process, which would be kind of cool. So anyways, so there's that. And then we have the Elder Scrolls Online expansion, Ghostwire Tokyo sequel. That is probably been killed. Ghostwire Tokyo did not perform. It did not review well. It wasn't critically acclaimed. It wasn't fan acclaimed. It wasn't acclaimed in any way. It just didn't perform. I don't see them making a sequel for it. What they do? Don't know. Leadership is also changing, right? Creative director's gone. Now we have Jonas is now kind of the creative director, I believe, of the studio. He was the creative director of Hi-Fi Rush. God, my brain. And I think he's going to take it over from there, but the founder's gone, right? And we'll see. We'll see. I don't see them doing Ghostwire Tokyo. Maybe they do another Evil Within or do something all new. Who knows? But I don't see it being Ghostwire. And then Dishonored 3, as I said, that's what's obviously coming out of Arcane Leon. Well, it could be Austin. Arcane Studios Austin, codename Black Sky. That does add up. But then we don't know what Leon's doing. Arcane Austin has 2 things on there. And Redfall flopped. And I don't see them. I see them saving some of the reputation there by making it better, but it's never going to be the game it should have been. And I just see them going, hey, you know what? The best way to recover from that is Dishonored 3, because that's what people have been wanting. Dishonored 3 and Prey 2. That's all we want. Deathloop, even on its own, as acclaimed as it was, didn't capture the audience it should have. And to be honest with you, it didn't capture me at all. And it's a game that screams it should be my type of game. And it just didn't. I don't know why it didn't hit. It just didn't hit. And then Doom Year Zero DLC. Again, fitting into the fact that they want to continue Doom production for quite some time. Yeah. And I'm not even going to talk about this financial crap over here because I don't see how that matters at all. But we've got let's see here. Oh yeah, limited or licensed IP. So Bethesda as a corporation, right? They don't do licensed IP. Like the last licensed game that they've made was like an NHRA drag racing game in like 2001 or something, 2004, I think, actually. Ashley Chang was in charge of that. And then they made Morrowind, and the rest is history, right? As soon as they made Morrowind, everybody was like, nope, no, no, stop making bullshit and just make those, please. And they did. Um, so what's licensed IP game? It's, it's an interesting thing. And who's doing it? Unless that, well, no, that isn't Project Platinum, right? And what's the license, right? The only company they have any sort of relationship right now with is Disney because they're doing the Indiana Jones thing. The Indiana Jones thing is separate from the licensed IP thing by 2 years. It could have been shelved. It, we might never know what this licensed IP thing was. Um, but it just baffles me to go, what license would they be trying to do that fits into something that Bethesda or one of their sister studios, whether it's Arcane, whether it's Machine, whether it's id, or one of their other smaller studios. Um, what is it, right? What cookie cutter does it fit, right? I said on Twitter this morning when we were talking about this a little bit with some people in the community, and I was talking there that in my dream, like a Star Wars style or a Star Wars game set in a Bethesda RPG would be like, I can't even tell you how much that would make me squee. But we got Starfield, and Starfield is that. It can be that if I want it to be that. I can role play as anything. I am right now in Starfield basically playing Firefly the game. Like I'm a space pirate that fights for the honorable good, and but I don't take orders from nobody, and if you wrong me, I will murder you because that's what cool space pirates do. And that's what I'm doing, right? And I could easily turn that into fighting for the empire if I wanted, or whatever, right? I could turn that into whatever kind of mentality I want. Um, so I can't see them being like, "Hey, yeah, let's do a Star Wars thing." Um, and I'm struggling to find an IP that isn't tied to somebody else, um, or being developed elsewhere else that would be interesting enough to garner somebody's attention like that. Right? Don't know. I don't know. It, it's something I'm going to sit up late at night thinking about. I'll tell you that because I want to know what the thought was here and everything associated with it. Because you have immersive sims, they can be from anyone, like any kind of genre or anything, right? But sci-fi lends itself most to immersive sims of some sort, science fiction, and even Dishonored sci-fi to a degree. It's steampunky in that way, but it still works that way. You've got Prey and things like that. So Arcane could be doing something like that, and maybe that's what Arcane Leon's working on. Because as I went here, we've got Codename Black Sky and we've got Redfall. Those are both Arcane Austin. So what's Leon been working on since um, Deathloop? Don't know, right? But we should be hearing about it next year. And that doesn't fit into their calendar here of 2024. Like, unless Deathloop just managed to hit the target, like, I guess it would have been the last game here to actually hit the target. No, I'm doing a lot of thinking out loud here. Arcane Leon can't be Machine. Machine's got too much going in there, too small. It's definitely not Bethesda, like Bethesda Game Studios proper, because Starfield and Elder Scrolls and Fallout is literally going to occupy all their time. The fact that they introduced Starfield into that rotation is just mind-boggling to me as well, because you already have a 5-year rotation on your games, and you're going to introduce another one into the middle of that, right? Who do you think you are, Call of Duty? Yeah, right. Arcane Leon is probably the most likely candidate, unless it spun up another team. But then you're dealing with whatever Arcane Leon wants to do, which is still immersive sim-ish, or a first-person shooter. And then I'm looking at IPs and going, what IP isn't being explored here, right? We've got Indiana Jones. We've got, and I'm thinking cash cow IP. Like, it's got to be something that makes sense for them to devote the resources into a Bethesda studio for that, right? The capital that's needed for that would be huge. They don't have any legacy IP that would be licensed, right? So again, unless they're working on a licensed IP not from another entertainment franchise, but from another video game company, similar to how Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas, right? Maybe that's what we're missing here. Maybe ZeniMax had already hired another studio to make another game. Maybe this is coming from a third party to ZeniMax. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. I would love to find out. I really would. But again, we don't know. So, as I say, I thought it was interesting how that all meshed up, or somewhat meshed up, to this older leak. This is from about a year ago that it popped up on Gaming Leaks and Rumors, and I went back and I found it today. And I'm pointing at the screen. You guys can't see that, but what I'm doing is I'm looking at this Platinum, Indiana Jones, and Project Relic, and then just kind of looking at how that spaces out, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't. Right? Project Relic is Indiana Jones. Project Platinum is something different, and we don't know what it is. But it probably involves killing Nazis, because apparently that's a Machine Games trademark. Interesting enough. All right, on to the next. I apologize for this being so small. I meant to format that, and I didn't, and I apologize for that. But what we will talk about is what it is. It is the cost, and I got it on my phone here so I don't have to navigate away. It is what Microsoft expects the cost of landing content on a Game Pass is. So let me make sure I'm on the right page here for this. So the very first one there is Lego Star Wars. And they figure it's a partner ask of about $35 million to get that on day and date. And then they've got like Dying Light 2. They figured that was $50 million. There's just some kind of interesting. City Skylines 2. They don't have a cost associated with that, which is interesting, but it's coming. And then they've got and that is actually coming day and date. Dragon Ball: The Breakers, Just Dance, Let's Sing ABBA, Return to Monkey Island. About $5 million are expected from that. But then we get over here to an interesting side of it, where son of a bitch. I'm just going to go to a different form here that I had for this. Maybe I did it on that. So I got to find the right thing that I did it on. You dumb dumb. Anyways, what they're talking about here is like Grand Theft Auto 5. That's what I was trying to find, and I can't find that slide on my phone, which is weird because I sent it from my phone to my computer. But Grand Theft Auto 5, which is already released, they are charging, they're expecting to pay between $10 to $15 million a month to have that on Game Pass. Red Dead Redemption 2, they're saying is a day and date, which is interesting, because it's already been released 2 years ago. But I think day and date, they mean for a remaster or something, maybe a re-release, which is wholly unnecessary and probably been shelved. But they were expecting to pay about $15 million a month for that one. So they probably only, hey, we're going to spend 60 million on that, keep it for a quarter and drop it, right? It's just interesting kind of figures for that. I will tweet these on my Twitter account if you want to actually see the dollars and cents. And that is the end of all the leaks. So I'm just going to bounce back over to that. Whoop. I'm going to bounce over to that one. So now we are here. Yeah, that looks good. What did we learn from all that? We learned that they have code names for everything. We learned that they have a plan for everything. I think aggressively targeting things like Valve and Nintendo won't do them any favors. I fully believe that if Gabe Newell wants to sell Valve, he'll sell Valve to whoever is the highest bidder. If that is Microsoft, we'll have to see how that works, because I see there being huge issues with conflicts on the store there and the digital marketplace in that landscape. Valve as a game studio doesn't really exist anymore, so I don't see there being any issues on the gaming side. I see it all being on the business side. So we'll have to see if anything like that pops up. Warner Brothers, again, would be a talent pool. It would be a talent acquisition. And I did say I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. They're in the process of acquiring Activision Blizzard. That will close in the next month or so, like fully. Activision Blizzard has a huge library of IP, and they have nobody working on it. All they're making is Call of Duty and Warcraft and, Diablos. Blizzard effectively being way more effective than Activision on that front, but at least when it comes to diversification of IP. You've got a lot of IP stored up in there. Doesn't matter really what it is, but they got so many legacy things and nobody making games on it. And then you've got like the possibility of Warner Brothers, which again, that's kind of ironed out right now. I would think they're relatively happy where they are. And by that, I mean, they're doing, Warner Brothers is a corporation. Warner Brothers Discovery is a lot different than Warner Brothers of 2 years ago, when they were going through a lot of turmoil and liquidating. And they were liquidating in order to make themselves more appealing for acquisition. And then they got this Discovery merger thing happen. And apparently what happened there, if I'm correct, is they got a bunch of idiots in charge of it that don't seem to understand how content works. And then Disney went and did the same thing, which is weird. They fired the guy that actually made half decent decisions and brought the guy back that they already fired and went, no, do whatever not that was, because we're not making enough money. The problem is they were making money. Now they're not making money. Discovery, Warner's kind of in the same boat. They're canning whole movies right before they knew they were going to go on a strike. And then they sit there and go, oh, we're losing $600 million. No shit. You just made a movie that cost you like 30 million, didn't release it. And now you can't do shit because you want AI to take the place of everybody that does the shit, and you can't make anything out of it. I wonder who the problem is in that equation. And then they do things like take stuff off of HBO Max, which they've stopped calling HBO Max just to call it Max, which is dumb. That is dumb. Like, I'm not subscribing to Max. I subscribe to HBO because HBO has a brand. I don't go to Big Mac. I go to McDonald's. Right? Big Mac is what I get there. So don't all of a sudden just change the name of the place to Big Mac. Because if you do something like that, you look like an idiot. But over at Discovery Warner, they went, we're going to get rid of the most famous part of our branding, which is the brand part of our branding. And then they do things like, well, we're going to take all the stuff off of HBO Max that we own, right? We own the rights to it. We make it. It's our content. It's not licensed. It's not rented. It's not leased. It's not borrowed. It's not stolen. We're going to take it. We're going to license it to someone else. And that someone else is going to pay us money to put it on their streaming service so we can make money. Okay, cool. But then everybody that's subscribed to your streaming service for that content is going to cancel and go subscribe over there. So you're going to lose more money than what you made. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to do that again. Like that's the mentality of these morons over there. So when it comes to video games, I think they just literally look at that chart and go, oh, the people in gaming, they made like $100 million. That's cute. Cool. And then they move on. And then they probably don't even know Suicide Squad's going to be a flop. Suicide Squad's going to be a flop. They probably don't care about that Arkham Knights or Gotham Knights game being a flop. They probably don't even know. They just look at the dollars and cents and go, yeah, that division made money. Cool. And that's largely because people are buying Lego games or the Harry Potter game or the latest thing out of NetherRealm, right? That's what's making them the money, right? And the thing is I guarantee you, the people in the gaming side, even probably the executives within the gaming side, just want the hell out of that. They want people to come in to make good decisions for them or allow them to make their own good decisions. So I do see a world where they get acquired or split up or do something, but I don't necessarily see that happening to Microsoft. I would love it. I think it would be so cool because you have, again, a bunch of studios that can't make Batman games anymore could now all of a sudden go make cool games that are Activision licensed or within the Microsoft universe, right? Microsoft has so much IP itself, let alone the rest of it, right? Add it all together. There's some wicked tech over there too, right? So let's put it all together and make it. So that's a dream, but it's not going to happen. But I could see it evolving to a point where something like that does happen. And with Embracer falling apart left, right, and center right now, which was a big kind of talk last week, and I was going to talk a bit about that in the news, was Embracer's looking to offload Gearbox, which again is one of those things that just makes no sense. Embracer spent money like a teenage kid with their first paycheck, right? They're like, oh, I want the jeans, I want the bubble gum, I want the car, I want the new CD player, or whatever those kids buy these days. I don't know. I want the new V-Bucks thing, whatever it is. But they went around and went, I want that studio, I want that studio, I want that studio, I want that studio. Cool. Now I spent like $500 bazillion. What do I do with all this? Oh, you got to pay the money back because the interest rates are higher now. So you need payments. You need to stop borrowing money and start making money. Oh, well, we're going to take the one company that we bought that actually makes half decent money and put them on the sale block. Smart choice. Instead of liquidating all the other companies to people that might be able to absorb them somehow and incorporate them, or they might be appealing, they're looking at the one big paycheck as opposed to the many smaller paychecks they could get out of the other ones. And we'll see what happens with Gearbox. I wouldn't be surprised if Gearbox gets bought by Take-Two. If they get acquired by another company, I think it'll be Take-Two. They work very well with Take-Two. And it just kind of makes sense to do that. And Take-Two has a good relationship with them. They publish all the Borderlands games. Might as well just buy them, put them under their wing, right, and go with it. But if they don't get bought, right, if they don't get bought and it fits best into Embracer's vision for them to offload Gearbox, then maybe Randy takes it back to being a private company again, right? We'll see. I don't know. I don't know how that falls out, but it's got to pitter patter it one way or the other. And then I did do the Nintendo Direct Live. I said I was going to do the PlayStation Direct Live. I fell asleep. Sorry. I woke up and I'm like, it's 5 minutes before this thing starts, so I'm not going to get a stream ready in time. But I did watch it, and boy howdy, did I waste a good nap. I should have just stayed asleep. That was lackluster. I didn't expect it to be groundbreaking. I didn't expect it to be amazing. They managed expectations huge on that. They said this will be mostly focused on titles coming later this year. and it was almost entirely focused on boring stuff. Other than the Baby Steps game and Spider-Man 2, nothing there was interesting at all. All that's coming later this year, except for Baby Steps. I think that's an early 2024 game. Um, Baby Steps looks amazing. Well, it's a walking simulator where you got to control your character's like left foot is ran by the left thumbstick or left trigger, and the right foot is ran by the right trigger, and you got to like alternate it and come up with a pattern and do it. And while you're doing that, you're got to balance. I don't know if the gyro comes into play or not, but you got to like navigate slopes and obstacles and things like that. And yeah, it's a walking simulator, but it's a walking simulator. It's kind of like a puzzle game, and I think there's kind of a fun aspect to that, and it looks hilarious as well. So we'll see. We'll see if that one pans out as well. But other than that, that show was just right. I think I rated the Nintendo one as like a B plus, maybe an A minus, somewhere in there. Like on the percentile basis, I'd say it's an 85 to 90. Right, that PlayStation one was a 60, and but the thing is they even said this is going to be like a 60. It's going to be a D minus. Cool. Do with that as you will. We're going to show you Spider-Man and maybe something else you care about. Other than that, right? And it probably could have just been a bunch of YouTube videos, but they probably have agreements. Amazingly, I was wrong about Call of Duty being there. I don't know when they're going to show this thing off properly. Sony has to market this game. They have to. They're contractually obligated to do it, and I haven't seen them do it yet. Right? I was walking through the store today, buying groceries, and I noticed that they had Forza Motorsport Doritos. So, like, Forza's got that locked down. So, where's the Call of Duty Mountain Dew? Right? Where's the Call of Duty Pepsi Lay's marketing deal? Right? Where's anything to do with this marketing happening? It's just like it's not ready to go, and I don't understand what's going on with that. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe the game comes out and it's a hot mess, and that's why nothing was ready to go, is because they didn't think the game would actually be coming. Don't know, but yeah, Sony has to market this game. They have a contractual obligation to market it. It's part of the money deal, so we shall see if that even happens, because that's what 2 months away. We've got trailers and stuff, but Sony hasn't pushed any of that out. So all in all, though, I think the news about these Xbox leaks and things like that, and as I said at the beginning of the show, at the top of the show, I said leaks are a double-edged sword, and they inherently are a huge double-edged sword. You have leaks that are, let's say, they give us a bit of news on the inside baseball. They give us maybe some insight into what's coming. What interests me the most is that inside baseball stuff. But also the other aspect of it is they put these teams under pressure, right? So now we have emails in between Phil Spencer and his team that have gone public now, and maybe missing some context that we don't know about, or something like that could look bad on them. I feel less bad about making an executive feel bad. You know, if you're in the C-suite, right, you can handle your emotions, you can handle your feelings, right? But where I'm also looking at this is going, now you have these studios going, oh shit, everybody knows about Project Platinum now. Got to make that live up to expectations, or the studio going, Dishonored 3. We're not making Dishonored 3. We're making Super Banana Baseball 6. Uh-oh. Now everybody's going to really be expecting Dishonored 3 because it was in an official leak thing, right? So it puts pressure on teams. It puts pressure on the wrong people. But we need to talk about these leaks, especially when they come out in kind of a quasi-official way. As I said, it was a court document. Probably a clerk screwed up and clicked public instead of private. Probably as simple as that. It's all been fixed now, apparently. But not before the damage was done. And that's another thing, is I highly expect Microsoft to go after the court big on that. Because like this stuff was given to you guys in confidentiality. It was supposed to be protected, and you guys aren't protecting it. So why should we cooperate with any future investigation, right? If you're not going to cooperate, there needs to be strict standards on how the stuff gets handled, and extremely big consequences if it's not done properly, right? Imagine if they accidentally leaked the recipe for like Coca-Cola, right? Or something like that in one of these things. Like that would be hugely detrimental to an industry, right? This is already, I think, detrimental enough. Like, I think what we're looking at is positive stuff in the grand scheme of things, but it can be detrimental because now it's like our plans are out. Everybody knows what, we're going to throw a fastball, then a curveball, and then we're going to do a changeup. Everybody knows what we're going to do. Right now the other team can go and hit the balls correctly. And that's wrong, right? That's wrong in that sense as well. So, but I just talk about it. I don't have anything to do with bringing it to you, right? So I think that is it for today's show. That should be it for today's show. I will do another episode at the end of the week. We'll summarize all of the actual news, and we'll find something a little bit more interesting to talk about than just business. But until then, thank you for joining me. I have been Warren Curtis. You've been the best audience I can ask for. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day. Bye. Took me a hot minute to find the right button. My dashboard updated. Sorry about that, guys.